A strange glow swept across the sky, bright enough to make every stone flicker with orange light. "Shadrach, do you feel that?" Meshach whispered as a soft rumble shook the ground under their sandals. Abednego grabbed Shadrach's hand. "Why is the sky glowing? There's no fire up there." The warm air pushed against their faces like a breath from something huge waking up. People ran toward the city square, talking fast and scared. The glow grew brighter, spreading like a rising sun made of metal. "What is hiding behind the clouds?" Abednego asked. The boys stared upward as a giant golden shape started to lift, blocking the real sun. A deep shadow slid over the street. The rumble stopped. The glow flashed one more time. Then the whole city fell quiet. The crowd gathered in the city square, staring up as the golden shape fully revealed itself. A huge statue covered in shining metal. People whispered, "Who built this? And why is it so tall?" The sun glinted off its polished surface, throwing streaks of light across every face. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stepped closer, still unsure what they were seeing. The warm air felt heavier now, as if the statue carried a hidden message. "This feels wrong," Meshach said softly, but no one knew that the king was about to speak. King Nebuchadnezzar stepped forward, robes trailing behind him as he raised his hands. His voice boomed, echoing off the stone walls. "When the music plays," he shouted, "everyone must bow to my golden statue. Anyone who refuses will be thrown into the fiery furnace." Gasps filled the square. Shadrach felt his stomach twist. Meshach and Abednego looked at him, knowing they all felt the same fear. The wind carried the king's words like burning sparks. The crowd buzzed with fear. Parents held their children close. Some whispered, "We must bow, or else." Others trembled. Shadrach felt his hands shake, but he breathed slowly. Meshach whispered, "We know what is right." Abednego nodded, though his voice shook. "We stand for God, even if no one else does." The music players lifted their instruments, ready to begin the command. The first notes rang across the square. The crowd dropped to their knees instantly, bowing low toward the golden statue. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stayed standing. Their hearts pounded, but their feet did not move. People peeked up at them in shock. The music echoed like thunder. "We choose God," Shadrach whispered. And with that choice, their journey into danger began. The sound of heavy boots filled the streets as royal guards marched out from the palace. Their armor clanked loudly, echoing off stone walls. People hurried out of the way, pulling children close and whispering, "The king means every word." Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego stood together near a water. Well, trying to stay calm, Shadrach swallowed hard. "They're looking for anyone who doesn't bow." Meshach nodded slowly. "Then they will find us." Abednego's voice shook. "Do you think the king will really throw people into the furnace?" A warm wind blew dust around their feet, and the boys looked at each other with steady eyes. "We stand with God," Shadrach whispered. The marching grew louder as the guards turned the corner. The king's musicians lifted their horns and harps once more. The loud blast echoed through every alley and home. People rushed into the streets, fear pushing them forward. "Bow!" someone shouted. The music began. Deep, shaking notes that rolled through the city like thunder. One by one, everyone dropped to their knees. Shadrach felt his heart pounding hard enough to shake his chest. "We can't bow," he said. Meshach breathed slowly. "God sees us." Abednego closed his eyes for a moment, gathering courage. The music grew louder, demanding, but the three boys stayed standing. As the music thundered, the three boys stayed tall. People peeked up at them in disbelief, whispering, "They're still standing." A woman covered her mouth. A man pointed nervously. "The king will be furious," someone said. Shadrach felt his knees tremble, but he did not bend. Meshach whispered, "We do not bow to a statue." Abednego nodded, voice shaky but brave. "God is with us." The warm wind pulled at their robes. The music reached its loudest point, and still the boys stood. Guards turned their heads, spotting them through the crowd. The moment tightened like a pulling rope. Whispers rolled through the crowd like ripples in water. "Did you see them? Are they out of their minds?" Officials in bright robes stepped closer, staring at the boys with sharp eyes. One official pointed. "Those three refused the king's command." Another nodded quickly. "We must tell him at once." Shadrach felt a shiver run down his back. Meshach whispered, "They're watching us now." Abednego glanced around nervously. The officials hurried off toward the palace, their robes fluttering behind them. The boys knew this was only the beginning. The guards pushed through the crowd, their armor clanking with every step. "You three!" One shouted. Shadrach felt his stomach twist. Meshach lifted his chin. Abednego swallowed hard. The guards stopped right in front of them. "By order of the king, you will come with us," the leader said. People gasped. Some hid their faces. Others looked at the boys with deep sadness. Shadrach whispered, "We are not alone." Meshach nodded softly. "God is here." Abednego took a steady breath as the guards grabbed their arms. The journey to the king had begun. The guards marched the three boys through the palace gates, their armor echoing loudly in the empty halls. Sunlight poured through tall windows, lighting the floor like golden rivers. Shadrach's heart thumped hard, but he kept walking. Meshach whispered, "Stay strong." Abednego took a deep breath, trying not to shake. At the end of the long hall sat King Nebuchadnezzar on his tall throne. Robes spread around him like flames. His eyes watched the boys with sharp, burning anger. The guards shoved them forward. "These are the ones," a guard said. The king leaned forward slowly, his voice low and powerful. "You three refused to bow." The air felt heavy. The boys stood still, knowing this moment would decide everything. King Nebuchadnezzar's voice echoed through the hall. "I will give you one more chance," he said, pointing toward the open balcony where the golden statue shimmered in the sun. "When the music plays again, you bow. If you refuse, you will be thrown into the fiery furnace." Shadrach felt fear pushing at his heart, but he stepped forward. "King," he said softly, "we do not need another chance." Meshach nodded. "We will not bow." Abednego added, his voice shaking but strong, "Our God can save us." The king's eyebrows rose in surprise. A quiet fell over the room. The boys' voices were small, but their courage filled the hall. The king's face twisted with anger. His voice exploded like thunder. "How dare you!" he shouted, rising from his throne. His robes swept behind him like a blazing flame. The guards stiffened as the king pointed sharply. "No god can save you from my hand." His words shook the hall. Shadrach squeezed his fists, but he didn't look away. Meshach whispered, "Stand firm." Abednego's breath trembled, but he lifted his chin. The king stepped closer, his shadow covering them. "You choose fire," he growled. The boys stayed silent, their hearts pounding but steady. The king's anger burned hotter than the furnace itself. "Heat the furnace 7 times hotter," the king roared. His voice shook dust from the walls. Guards scrambled instantly, running through the palace doors. Shadrach felt a chill run through him, even in the warm air. Meshach whispered, "God is still with us." Abednego nodded softly, though fear still fluttered inside him. Outside, loud shouts echoed as the guards worked, feeding fire with dry wood and oil. Flames growled like a wild beast waiting for prey. Smoke rose into the sky. The king watched the boys closely, his eyes burning with fury. "You will burn," he said. But the boys stood strong. The guards returned, breathing hard, sweat dripping down their faces. "The furnace is ready, my king," one said. The king nodded sharply. "Tie them up!" Shadrach's hands were pulled behind him, rough ropes wrapping tightly. Meshach felt the rope dig into his wrists. Abednego winced as the knots tightened. People gathered in the distance, whispering in fear as the boys were bound. Shadrach whispered, "Whatever happens, we trust God." Meshach breathed deep, steady. Abednego nodded bravely, even with tears in his eyes. The guards pushed them toward the roaring furnace, its flames snapping like hungry jaws. The guards pushed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego toward the blazing furnace. The heat hit them like a burning wind, even from far away. Shadrach felt sweat gather on his forehead as the air shimmered around them. Meshach whispered, "Do not be afraid." Abednego nodded, though fear trembled in his breath. The crowd watched from behind stone walls, too scared to come closer. Sparks floated through the air like tiny, fiery butterflies. The closer they walked, the louder the furnace roared, shaking the ground beneath their feet. "God is with us," Shadrach whispered. The guards tightened their grip. Flames snapped like angry jaws, waiting. The furnace roared louder as they stepped closer. The heat pushed at their faces like a giant, burning hand. Even the guards winced as the flames shot upward. With a loud crack, Shadrach breathed fast, trying to stay steady. Meshach whispered, "Remember, God saved others before. He can save us now." Abednego's eyes glistened with tears, but he nodded. Sparks flew across the ground, rolling like tiny stars. The crowd gasped as another burst of fire leapt high into the air. The boys could barely hear anything over the roaring flames. The world seemed to glow with orange firelight. The crowd stood far back, watching with wide, terrified eyes. Parents held their children tightly. Some people cried. Others covered their faces, unable to watch. Shadrach looked toward the people for a moment, seeing fear mixed with sadness. Meshach whispered, "Many will see God's power today." Abednego said quietly, "Even if we burn, we trust him." The wind pushed more sparks out of the furnace, swirling them into the sky like glowing dust. The king stepped forward, watching closely with a fierce stare. The guards dragged the boys right to the edge of the fire. The guards pulled the boys right up to the mouth of the furnace. The fire roared so loud it felt like the sky itself was shaking. Shadrach whispered, "God, we trust you." Meshach closed his eyes for a moment. Abednego breathed slowly, even though fear twisted inside him. The guards shouted, "Throw them in!" But the heat was so strong that even the soldiers could barely stand. Flames burst outward, pushing everyone back. Still, the guards forced themselves forward. With one last shove, the boys were pushed into the fire. The crowd screamed. The flames swallowed them instantly. The heat exploded outward the moment the boys fell inside. A burst of fire shot straight at the guards. They screamed as the blast knocked them backward. Some collapsed instantly from the fierce heat. The crowd gasped and cried out in shock. The king's eyes widened as he stepped back, unable to hide his surprise. Smoke curled into the sky like dark fingers. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego disappeared inside the roaring flames. The furnace glowed brighter than ever, shaking the ground under everyone's feet. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Inside the roaring furnace, the flames twisted like wild beasts. But suddenly, something strange happened. The bright orange fire began to shift into soft colors, gold, blue, and white, mixing together like glowing waves. Shadrach blinked in confusion. Meshach felt cool air touch his face. Abednego gasped. "Are we alive?" They stood in the fire without burning. Their ropes fell off as though sliced by invisible hands. The heat that once felt like a giant pushing against them now felt calm and gentle, like warm sunlight. Outside, The crowd stared at the furnace as the glow changed color, whispering in shock. Something impossible was happening inside. Noriden, a soft glow brightened behind the boys. Shadrach turned first. His eyes widened. Meshach stepped back in awe. Abednego whispered, Who is that?" A fourth figure stood with them, shining with a calm, gentle light. His presence felt peaceful and strong at the same time. The flames bent away from him as if they respected him. He didn't speak, but his smile made the boys feel safe. Shadrach felt courage filling his heart. Meshach breathed easier. Abednego felt all fear melt away. Outside, people leaned forward, sensing something amazing happening inside the fire. Shadrach took a slow step forward. The flames moved aside for him like soft wind. Meshach followed, feeling the warm glow of peace all around him. Abednego lifted his hands, amazed to see no burns at all. "We're walking in fire," he whispered. The angel walked beside them, calm and steady. The boys felt stronger with every step. Outside, the crowd gasped as shadowy shapes moved inside the flames. "There are 4 of them!" someone shouted. King Nebuchadnezzar frowned, leaning closer, his eyes wide with disbelief. The impossible was becoming clear. Outside the furnace, people screamed and pointed. "Look, they're alive!" someone shouted. A mother covered her mouth, unable to believe her eyes. Children peeked from behind their parents. Sparks floated into the sky like glowing dust. The light inside the furnace grew brighter, almost too bright to look at directly. Some villagers fell to their knees in amazement. "This is impossible," a soldier whispered. Even the guards who had pushed the boys inside stared in shock. The whole crowd felt something powerful, something holy, happening right before their eyes. King Nebuchadnezzar stepped closer, his face pale and stunned. He squinted into the bright furnace. "Did we not throw 3 boys into the fire?" he shouted. A guard nodded quickly. The king pointed with a shaking hand. "But I see 4, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods," the crowd gasped. The boys kept walking inside the flames, calm and untouched. The angel stood with them, glowing like morning light. The king stumbled back, overwhelmed by the miracle. Everyone knew now. Something greater than fire was at work. The blazing furnace glowed brighter than ever, but now the light felt warm and hopeful instead of dangerous. King Nebuchadnezzar stepped forward, still shaking from what he had seen. "Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego," he shouted. "Come out of the fire." His voice echoed across the silent crowd. Inside the flames, Shadrach looked toward the angel. Meshach whispered, "Is it time?" Abednego nodded gently, his heart full of peace. The angel smiled, lifting a calming hand. The flames softened and parted like opening curtains. Slowly, the 3 boys walked toward the furnace entrance. Each step felt light, safe, and filled with courage. Outside, the people held their breath, waiting to see the miracle with their own eyes. The boys stepped out of the furnace and onto solid ground. The crowd gasped as one loud breath. People stared at their robes, smooth, clean, not even darkened by smoke. Shadrach looked down at his hands, amazed. Meshach touched his robe gently. Abednego lifted his sleeve and whispered, "Not a single burn." Even their hair looked perfect, not a strand singed. King Nebuchadnezzar stepped closer, eyes wide. He walked around them in disbelief, searching for any mark of fire, but there were none. The boys stood tall and calm, surrounded by warm sunlight and glowing dust. Then something beautiful happened. As the boys stood in the open air, a soft melody rose in Shadrach's heart. Meshach felt it too. A gentle tune growing inside him like warm light. Abednego lifted his head, smiling. Without planning it, The three began to sing. A simple, joyful song, thanking God for saving them. Their voices blended like flowing water. The sound carried through the crowd, filling every person with peace. The flames behind them dimmed to a soft glow, as though the fire itself were listening. The king lowered his head, moved by the gentle music. People watched in awe as the boys sang bravely, their voices steady and sweet. The song spread through the crowd like warm sunlight. Mothers wiped tears from their cheeks. Children lifted their faces, smiling with wonder. Older men bowed their heads with respect. Even the guards who had pushed the boys into the furnace felt their hearts soften. The whole city square grew calm, wrapped in the boys' gentle voices. Shadrach sang with courage. Meshach sang with steady hope. Abednego sang with bright joy. Their voices rose and fell in perfect harmony. For a moment, the world felt still. No fear, no anger, no shouting. Only peace. When the song ended, silence fell gently over the city square. King Nebuchadnezzar stepped forward with slow footsteps. He looked at the boys, his expression changed. Not angry, not proud, but deeply moved. "Blessed be your God," he said softly, his voice trembling. "He sent an angel to save you." The crowd murmured as the king lifted his eyes toward the sky. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego felt peace settle in their hearts. They didn't need to explain anything. Everyone had seen the truth for themselves. The boys took a step back, standing together with quiet smiles. Their faith had carried them through the fire, and now it shone brighter than ever. The king stood before the crowd, breathing slowly, as the weight of the miracle settled in his heart. The wind carried the last soft glow from the furnace. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego watched quietly, unsure of what the king would do next. Nebuchadnezzar raised his hands high. "Hear me," he shouted. His voice echoed across the square. "No one in my kingdom may speak against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego." The people gasped. For no other God can save like this. The boys looked at each other with grateful eyes. They had not asked for power or praise, only to stand for what was right. Now the entire kingdom was being changed because of their faith. The square buzzed with excitement. People hugged one another, smiling through their tears. Children ran around laughing, pointing at the furnace that no longer looked scary at all. Musicians lifted their instruments again, but this time the music sounded joyful instead of frightening. Shadrach felt warmth grow in his chest. This was the first moment he felt truly safe again. Meshach closed his eyes and thanked God quietly. Abednego smiled so wide his cheeks hurt. The whole city felt lighter, as if fear had melted away like smoke in the wind. Celebration filled the air. As the celebration continued, the boys stepped aside to a quiet corner of the square. Shadrach let out a long breath he had been holding. Meshach placed a hand on his shoulder. "We made it," he whispered. Abednego looked at both of them, eyes soft. God never left us. Not even for a second. They formed a small circle and wrapped their arms around each other. For a moment, they didn't need words. Their hearts were full. Full of relief, full of gratitude, full of joy. They knew their lives would never be the same again. Not after walking through fire and finding peace inside it. The sun dipped lower, covering Babylon in warm orange light. People began returning to their homes, still talking excitedly about the miracle they had seen. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walked slowly down the street, taking in the peace around them. The shops, the walls, the familiar roads all looked different now. Everything felt safer, brighter. Abednego pointed at the sky. "Look," he whispered. A soft, glowing cloud moved across the horizon, almost like the same light they had seen before everything began. Meshach smiled. "A reminder?" he said. Shadrach nodded. "God is always near." As night settled over the city, the boys stopped at a quiet hill overlooking Babylon. The stars twinkled above them. Shadrach whispered, "We faced the fire, and God brought us through." Meshach added, "He was with us in the hardest moment." Abednego finished softly, "and he stays with us still." The three stood together, watching the gentle watching lights of the city below. Their journey had been frightening, but it had also shown them the strength of faith. And now, their story would help others be brave too. The boys smiled at one another, knowing this was only the beginning of a life filled with courage and trust in God.